Hello, and welcome to Test the Waters with Jake. In this series, I'll be reviewing products available to the aquarium hobbyist in Australia, where I live. All of these products have been purchased by myself at no incentive beyond my own curiosity, and all opinions expressed are my own. Today I'll be looking at Smick Aqua Supply's Shrimp Pops. So I guess I should begin by saying, what is a shrimp pop? The shrimp pop is a wooden stick that has a food supply stuck to it. In this case, it's the red shrimp pop, which has a beetroot extract. Shrimp pops are all much the same. Again, it's a wooden stick, which is perfectly safe to put in any aquarium, and a food item that is stuck to that stick that, of course, the shrimp can smell. What I'll be looking at today are examples from their combination packs. You can see their regular combination and the ultra combination pack, both in the 15 centimeter. I have fairly short shrimp tanks, 20-liter shrimp tanks, so I purchased the 15 centimeter on purpose. You can see the regular combo pack has got 4 green, 4 gold, and 4 red, whereas the ultra pack has 3 green, 3 gold, 3 red, 3 purple, 3 probiotic. The difference in price is about $4 from where I purchased them at Aztec Aquariums in South Australia. Shout out to them for their 4th birthday yesterday. Let's have a look inside. I'll be testing the pops across a few different tanks. Here is a 450-liter Vision 450 tank. As you can see, it's a community tank with lots of fish, community fish, but also, at last count, a few thousand red cherry shrimp that are doing great in that tank. I'll be testing the blue and yellow enhancers across these two tanks. They both have cherry shrimp in them. However, on the left is blue dream shrimp, and the right are yellow cherry shrimp. The colors are purposely segregated. Coming in close, you can see there is a thriving population. I can't count them, but I would guess at least 100 in the yellows, and well, they're hiding in that thick moss bed at the moment, but approximately 100 at least of the blue dreams as well, but I don't doubt they will come out to eat. Also thinking to test in this tank. This is an Aqua Clear 20-liter tank. It contains Tangerine tigers and a few select red cherry shrimp. And this tank over here contains white snowball shrimp. As you can see, this tank has a few centimeters of sand as a base layer, so it should be easy to embed the stick in. So serving for this tank is simply just going to stand the stick up and see how long it takes to attract them. It's suitable to have a much longer stick in a tank this size, but I bought the sticks principally to supply the smaller tanks, but I thought best to also try it out in this tank. Also, you'll see how it goes when there's competition. You'll see all the fish going by, but also you can also see that the cherry shrimp are not afraid to go for food in this tank either, the adults. That is, the baby cherry shrimp are all hiding in moss beds, secreted away and safe from predation by many of the fish that live in this tank, but the adults being of comparable size to the fish, which I have purposely selected so that they would be the adult shrimp would be safe with the fish. You can see that, yes, these adult shrimp are not afraid at all to forage and swim around this tank with the fish. So I'm just going to hold on this red pop for a bit longer and see how long it takes to attract them. There's a few up there that are already investigating. They can smell it, as I said. They operate by smell principally, as I understand. Their eyes secondary. So they also don't know what that is to look at, but they're first going to smell it in the water and then go and have it investigate. Shrimp forage pretty much 24/7. So they're always hungry. They're always on the lookout for something interesting and tasty. It's just a matter of how long it takes for them to notice it. This is a 1.5 meter long tank, so plenty of room for them to live and spread out in. The stick is just one tiny little spot in it, but I've put it near where I know a lot of them do camp out, but not the majority, just again to see how quickly they're attracted. This tank is regularly fed a mixture of food. The shrimp principally fed the same flake mixture as the fish, but I also feed this tank blanched fresh spinach from my garden, which the shrimp will flock to almost immediately, so I'm expecting them to take to any new foods quite easily. As you can see, there's a few big females who are already attracted and are having a good investigate, and seems they like what they've spotted. We cut to 5 minutes later. As you can see, a few more shrimp have been attracted. Oh, as I'm speaking, more are coming now. It would take usually about 30 to 60 seconds for shrimp to be swarming any new food in this tank. However, notice that this food is down on the bottom on the substrate, effectively. A fair trial to this tank would also be to put a shrimp pop at the surface. As you can see, most of the shrimp know that the food tends to stay floating on the surface, or at least gathering around the surface. The bottom is kept clean by the corridors. The higher up is kept clean by this army of shrimp. So what I'm going to do is drop one at the surface. It's got a stick, so it should float, and just see how it goes. As you can see, it's an immediate response. Shrimp from farther along the tank seem to be migrating towards this new interesting smell. I would call this surface feed a success. In fact, they'll even come out of the water to eat if they think it's worth it. The one farther down, moderate success. Again, big tank. The shrimp mainly know to eat at the surface, so again, I'd still call that moderate success. So into these tanks, about 10 seconds ago, I've put in one of the purple sticks into the blue tank and one of the gold sticks into the yellow tank. Being sticks, one of the best ways to serve is to put them in the substrate. However, these have a very shallow sand substrate, only a few millimeters on purpose. So what I've done is I've wedged each stick into an air stone, and as you can see, that's holding it down. In both of these tanks, I've placed them in areas that regularly get sinking food, so the shrimp are used to food being in these areas. I purposely haven't fed either of these tanks today, so of course they've been grazing on any material they've found in the tank, but I haven't added any extra food today. Being 100 plus shrimp in a 20-liter environment, they eat a lot, so I do have to add a reasonable amount of food every day to ensure that all the shrimp are happy, healthy, and thriving and breeding. And this is only about 2 minutes after the last cut. However, you can see, yes, the yellow shrimp are definitely taking a real shine to it. Blue shrimp, they're investigating. Some of them are starting to come to it now. Admittedly, just being willing to eat food is not necessarily a mark of quality. However, it doesn't matter how good quality your food is. If your animals are unwilling to eat it, then what's the sense in buying it? And this is clearly attracting them. I have faith in its quality. So yes, looks like they're definitely willing to eat it. Just taking a little bit of time with the blues. Again, it might be just because it is an unusual color and unusual smell. Whereas the yellows, it's actually pumpkin based, but which is not a food that I commonly feed them. However, it's easy for them to see, it's easy for them to smell. They honestly might just be a little bit hungrier than the blues. I'm not sure. But as we can see, again, they're both being attracted. They're both having a go. The blues is just taking a little bit more time. Now, I'd be perfectly willing to feed just about any color food to any color shrimp. The fact that I've matched them to their color, I am attempting to do a little bit of color enhancing. However, it's not like if you fed a blue food to a yellow shrimp, it would all of a sudden turn blue. Just what I'm hoping is that feeding some bluish purple foods will help strengthen the blue color in the blue shrimp. Feeding yellowy, orangey type foods will help enhance the yellow color of the yellow shrimp. Here we are about 10 minutes later. You can see the yellow shrimp have swarmed it. They're taking it apart. It'll be gone pretty quick. Blue shrimp, slower to take it up. However, I do notice they're all gathered around the base there, so they can smell something's tasty. They're just not entirely sure what, it seems. Well, just a bit higher up there, fellas, and there's plenty to eat, plenty to go around. 20 minutes later, you can see the what's called the gold pop in the yellow shrimp tank. It's basically gone. Anything fallen to the bottom is gone. So yes, they are very, very happily eating that. Blue tank, there are definitely blue shrimp on that pop, but they are eating it a bit slower. Still have the gathered masses at the bottom that haven't made their way up for one reason or another. But yes, they can definitely tell something in the area is quite interesting, but they're just not, some of them at least are just not entirely sure what. For my next test, I'm going to try it in the Tangerine Tiger tank, in my rack of 4 20-liter tanks. I'm going to try out the probiotic one, see how attractive that is to them. Now, this tank has significantly fewer shrimp in it. There's only 10 adult tangerines and 4 adult red cherry shrimp at last count. However, it does have a new generation of tangerines coming along. I counted at least 10 babies last time I did a head count. So that's why I'm going to go with the probiotic, see if I can give the those babies a head start. This is what I'd call one of the teenage tangerines, one of the larger of the offspring, but still not a full adult. Is immediately smelling it out and going for an investigation. As you can see, they're definitely being attracted to it. I expect the adults are mainly in the filter sponges at the back, scrounging through there for food. But when they smell it on the water, maybe they'll come out for the probiotic pop. About 6 minutes later, you can see shrimp are being attracted to it. It's also flaking apart, so it's breaking down a bit. And some of the shrimp have run off with little pieces that they can pull away. And I have a little cause for concern, just how easy it's going to be to make sure that all gets eaten, and I can clean it, and I can clean up any excess. But with any food, it stays in this tank stays in any of my tanks for at least 24 hours, always being very mindful for mold. But yes, checking it and leaving it in time. I have snails in the tanks as well. Snails will clean up those leftovers, but I want to make sure that the shrimp get plenty of opportunity to eat. One of my big females has come out to investigate the new food, and she seems to be taking a shine to it. My last experiment will be to put in a green spinach pop for the white shrimp, the snowball shrimp. I've only had these, there's 20 in here. I've had them for approximately 3 weeks. They haven't gotten used to my fresh spinach regime, but I'm hoping that the dried spinach will be just as enticing, maybe even more. Oh, and a little bonus tip for keepers of snowball shrimp: quickly learn the difference between a molt and a live and dead shrimp. In this frame, you can see 2 live shrimp moving around. The white shrimp-like shape behind it, that's just a molt casing. You find them all the time in any tank. The difference is when a red, blue, yellow, any other color shrimp molts, you know that the white molt is exactly that. It's just the old shell that they've left behind. White shrimp, a white shell, at least in the first couple days, gave me real pause for thought. So yes, a little bonus tip for you. This tank has a slightly deeper black gravel substrate, fine gravel, a coarse sand substrate. So I'm going to try to add the pop just by itself, the stick, try to embed it in the sand. And that's not working. So what I'm going to do is I will use that cube there. I wedged it into the gravel using that ceramic cube. You can see some bubbling of water entering any air gaps in the spinach food. Which is actually a good sign. It means that water is entering in, puffing it up, softening it, making it easier for the shrimp to eat. Shrimp will find it impossible to eat anything particularly hard. They scrape all their food with their tiny pincers, so anything they eat needs to have just at least a little bit of softness, or at least whatever's on the surface that they're looking for needs to have a little bit of softness. We have our first customer, so that is a good sign to begin with. As recommended on the package, it says I recommend feeding this as 1 to 2 times a week. I'm thinking maybe once a week, once a fortnight, particularly at the price given. Frankly, it's more for my amusement than theirs, honestly. Shrimp are not very particular when it comes to what they eat. You do need to, any animal in your care, you need to make sure that you're giving them good quality food. Just be aware that good quality and expensive are not always synonymous. Expensive tends to be brand and gimmick, frankly, more than quality, but as a shopper, buyer beware. Find brands that you are comfortable supporting at a price point you can afford. That always has your animal's best health and interest number one. For all these animals, my principal food source is a fine powder flake. The particular flake I use is not the cheapest one, but honestly, that's just because I buy in bulk for my fish tank, and I just powder that particular flake because it's the one that I have a large amount of. A high protein flake is really great. A crushed high protein flake is really great for your shrimp. If you can powder it finely, sprinkle it in the tank, particularly with Neocaridina shrimp, cherry shrimp, and these white shrimp, but frankly also the tangerine tigers, which behave much like Neocaridina. Yes, your fine powder flake is a great source of protein, which is important both for the females in creating eggs, but also in their newly hatched offspring, because they will be molting often twice a day, and voracious for food while still being scavengers. So they will need to be able to get their hands on, their very, very tiny hands, on high protein food to ensure best opportunity for survival. And again, that would be a high protein flake that is powdered. I also I have some shrimp tablets, algae wafers, things to ensure a diverse diet. Mindful that the primary food source of any shrimp is honestly not what I put in there. It's the microalgae, microorganisms that grow on the surfaces. I make sure I have lots of live plants because they encourage that microbiome of microalgae, microorganisms that the shrimp will principally eat. But when there's not enough of that to eat, that's when we particularly need to supplement with extra food. But considering we do have a contained environment, We also, as keepers, must be mindful to ensure that they get a good diet, which has a lot of the different minerals and elements that they need to survive and thrive. The snowballs are definitely more active at the moment, potentially because they smell food in the tank, but as you can see, they're currently not particularly drawn to it. But again, that might just be their awkward foraging and being not used to what's on offer. We come back to the tangerines on the probiotic pop. As you can see, it has disintegrated a fair amount and come off the stick. I'm not a huge fan of that, to be honest, for this style of tank, but you can see 2 large adults are feeding on it, so I expect that will be eaten and going away in the next day or two, but I'll have to keep an eye on it and just make sure it doesn't go moldy first. If so, remove it as soon as I spot that. Back with the snowball tank. Now you can see one snowball is climbing on the pop, but I would also comment that I can see many of the other shrimp are a lot more active. Before I put the pop in, I did notice that they were basically all hiding. Potentially they have the food they need and they're just grazing on it, hiding away at the back of the filter or whatever, but I noticed there's a lot more activity in this tank, and there's two having a feed. I do ascribe that with there is a food that obviously smells good to them that's in the water, and they are actively trying to find where it is. After about 24 hours, I ended up removing the leftovers from the Tangerine Tiger and Snowball Shrimp tanks. This amounted to about half of the original amount that was attached to the stick. In summary and conclusion, I think that Smick Aqua Supply's shrimp pops are a good product, readily taken by the shrimp that I keep. However, I would put the caveat on them that I do not think they're a good product for a low population count tank. In my tanks with only about 20 shrimp in them, I ended up throwing out half of the stick, whereas in the tanks with 100 plus, they were just easily demolished within a few minutes. So with that caveat, it's a tick from me, approved. Thanks for your time, and thanks for watching. And if something's going wrong in a tank, if something doesn't make sense, remember, test the waters.